You know, they say the devil wears Prada. But down here in New Orleans, the devil wears vintage Chanel and sits in the front pew of the St. Jude Cathedral every Sunday morning, clutching a pearl rosary like it's going to save her soul. I used to think evil was something loud, you know, like a monster in a movie. But I learned the hard way that evil is quiet. It smiles at you over breakfast, pours you a glass of orange juice, and then systematically destroys your entire life without ever raising its voice. My name is Maya Leckler, and if you had seen me a year ago, standing at that altar in a dress that smelled like mothballs and someone else's perfume, you would have pitied me. Everyone else did. 200 of the city's elite, the old money, the people who run this town, were sitting there in the pews, stifling their laughter behind hymnals. They were watching the final humiliation of the Leckler family. They were watching me marry a beggar. Let me back up. Because to understand why I was standing there next to a man who looked like he hadn't showered in a month, you have to understand the woman who put me there, my stepmother, Victoria. Victoria married my father, Julian, when I was 10. My dad was a good man, a brilliant architect who restored half the French Quarter, but he had a blind spot for broken things, and Victoria played the part of the broken bird perfectly. But the moment the ring was on her finger, the bird turned into a hawk. She spent 15 years isolating him, spending his money, and making me feel like a guest in my own home. When my dad died 18 months ago, a sudden heart attack, they said, though he was healthy as a horse, I thought things couldn't get worse. I was wrong. Victoria didn't just inherit the house. She inherited the power. And she hated me. She hated that I had my father's eyes. She hated that I was studying restoration architecture, following in his footsteps. But mostly, she hated that I knew what she really was. The morning of the wedding started with a bang on my door at 6 a.m. I had just gotten home from a double shift waiting tables because Victoria had cut off my access to the family accounts for my own good, and I was dead on my feet. Victoria breezed in, already fully made up, holding a garment bag. "Get dressed, darling," she said, her voice smooth as bourbon. "We're going to church. And then, you're getting married." I thought she was joking. Who wouldn't? But then she walked me to the window and pointed down at the street. There was a black SUV parked there with 2 men inside. Men with necks like tree trunks and suits that fit too tight. "You see them?" she asked casually, checking her lipstick in the mirror. "They work for the Gilded Circle. You remember the stories your father used to tell about the powerful men in this city? Well, they're real. And they're very interested in whether or not the Leckler family is going to be a problem. I told them we aren't. I told them you're distracted, pathetic, and in love. In love?" I asked, my voice shaking. "With who?" "Oh, just a stray I found." She smiled, a cruel, thin thing. "He's waiting at the altar. You're going to marry him, Maya. You're going to humiliate yourself so thoroughly that no one in this town will ever take you seriously again. You'll be the girl who married the bum. And if you don't," she nodded toward the SUV, "those men will pay a visit to that little art studio your best friend runs. You know how flammable turpentine is." So, I put on the dress. Walking down that aisle was like walking through a nightmare. The air in the church was thick, humid, smelling of lilies and expensive cologne. I kept my eyes on my wrist. I was wearing my dad's old watch, a battered leather thing with a scratched face. It was the only thing Victoria hadn't thrown away, probably because she thought it was worthless. I could feel it ticking against my pulse, a steady rhythm grounding me while my world fell apart. And then I saw the groom. Victoria hadn't lied. He was rough. He was wearing jeans that were shredded at the knees and a jacket that looked like it had been pulled out of a dumpster. His beard was thick and unkempt, hiding half his face. The smell of rain and old earth radiated off him. The congregation was buzzing, phones out, recording the spectacle. Trash marrying trash, I could hear them whispering. "Look at Julian's daughter now." But when I reached the altar, something strange happened. I looked at his hands. They were resting on the railing, and they were clean, not just washed, but scrubbed. No dirt under the nails. And then I looked up into his eyes. They were a startling, piercing blue, and they were completely clear. There was no madness there, no addiction, no confusion. Just a calm, intense intelligence that terrified me more than the dirt ever could. "Do you?" the priest asked, rushing through the words like he wanted to be anywhere else. I do, I whispered, holding back tears. And do you? The man looked at me. He didn't slur. He didn't mumble. He spoke in a voice that was deep, resonant, and educated. I do. The wedding reception was a farce. Victoria had set up a table in the church basement with punch and stale cookies, just to drive the insult home, while she held court with her friends, laughing about her charity case stepdaughter, the man Liam. That was his name, steered me out the back door into the rain. Why? I asked him, hugging my arms to stop the shivering. Why? You let them kill him, I whispered, the horror rising in my throat like bile. You knew. I survived. She screamed. That's what women like me do. We survive. She lunged for me, trying to grab my wrist, realizing where the watch was. But before she could touch me, the back door flew open. Liam was there. But he wasn't the beggar anymore. He had shaved. He was wearing a clean shirt he must have scavenged from my dad's old closet. And he was holding a tire iron. Touch her, Liam said, his voice low and lethal. And I will forget that I'm a gentleman. Victoria froze. She looked at him, squinting, trying to place him without the beard and the grime. And then, her eyes went wide. I know you, she breathed. You're his son. You're Richard Sterling's son. I looked at Liam, stepping back. Richard Sterling, the head of the Gilded Circle, the man who ordered my father's death. Liam? I asked, my voice trembling. My name is Liam Sterling, he said, not taking his eyes off Victoria. And I'm here to burn my father's kingdom to the ground. The revelation hit me harder than the wedding had. I was married to the son of the man who murdered my father. I ran out the front door, into the humid New Orleans night, blindly stumbling down the street. Liam caught up to me 2 blocks later, grabbing my arm gently but firmly. Maya, stop. Please, listen. You're one of them. I shouted, shoving him away. This was all a setup. You were spying on me. I haven't spoken to my father in 3 years. He yelled back. I left the family when I found out what they were. I've been living on the streets, off the grid, because it was the only way to stay clean of their money. When Victoria found me, she didn't recognize me behind the beard. She just saw a bum. I took the offer because I knew she was connected to the people I'm trying to destroy. I didn't know it was you. I didn't know you were Julian's daughter until I saw the photos in the house. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a badge. Not a fake one. A real one. I'm not just a runaway, Maya. I'm a consultant for the FBI. I've been building a case against my father for 2 years. But we needed the smoking gun. We needed the evidence your father hid. He looked at my wrist, at the battered leather watch. It's not a watch, Maya. He said softly. It's a vault. We went to a safe house, a small apartment in the French Quarter owned by my Aunt Camille, the only person in the family who had refused to speak to Victoria. Aunt Camille was a retired judge, tough as old leather and twice as sharp. When I told her everything, she didn't blink. She just poured us 3 cups of strong coffee and pulled out a jeweler's toolkit. Vernon always was dramatic, Camille muttered, putting a loop to her eye. Let's see what you left us, little brother. She unscrewed the back of the watch. It wasn't just a battery casing. Inside, taped to the mechanism, was a micro SD card. We plugged it into Camille's encrypted laptop. The files popped up. It was everything. Spreadsheets detailing millions of dollars in bribes to city officials. Blueprints of buildings that had been approved despite safety violations. And then, a video file. We clicked play. My dad's face filled the screen. He looked tired, scared. If you're watching this, he said, and I choked back a sob. Then I didn't make it. The Gilded Circle is laundering money through the Port Authority. Richard Sterling is the head, but he's not alone. He's being helped by Victoria. She's the one moving the money through the charity accounts. She's not a victim, Maya. She's the CFO. The room went silent. Victoria hadn't just looked the other way. She was the architect. She had profited from my father's murder. She had stolen my inheritance, $250,000 meant for my schooling, and used it to buy her silence. We have them, Liam said, his face hard as stone. We have them all, but we had celebrated too soon. My phone rang. It was Victoria. Don't hang up, she said, her voice tight. I know you're with the Sterling boy. And I know you found the card. Here's the deal. You bring me the card, or Aunt Camille's house burns down. With all of us inside. You're bluffing, I said, though my hands were shaking. Look out the window. I moved the curtain. Down on the street, the black SUV was there, and standing next to it was a man holding a Molotov cocktail. You have 1 hour, Victoria said. Meet us at the shipyard. Warehouse 4, come alone, or the judge dies. The drive to the shipyard felt like a funeral procession. The New Orleans fog had rolled in off the river, thick and heavy, wrapping around the streetlights like gauze. Liam was driving Aunt Camille's old sedan, his knuckles white on the wheel. I was sitting in the passenger seat, clutching the SD card in my sweating palm. Aunt Camille was in the back, checking the load on a snub-nosed .38 revolver she had pulled from a hollowed-out Bible. You don't have to do this, Maya, Liam said, his voice tight. We can call the team. My handler at the FBI is ready. If we call them, Victoria torches the house, I said, staring at the blurred lights passing by. Or she disappears. She's got offshore accounts, Liam. If she smells a raid, she'll be in the Caymans drinking mimosas before the handcuffs come out. We have to get her to confess. We have to keep her there until you can signal the team. It's a trap, Aunt Camille said from the back, snapping the cylinder of the gun shut. You know that, right? They aren't going to let us walk out of there. I know, I said. But they're underestimating us. They always have. They think I'm just the stupid girl who married a beggar. And they think you're just a disowned son. I looked at Liam. Let's show them what trash can really do. Warehouse 4 was a rusted hulk of metal sitting right on the water's edge. The smell of brine and diesel fuel was overpowering. We parked the car and walked in. The massive sliding doors were open just a crack, revealing a cavernous space lit by hanging work lights. Victoria was there. She was sitting on a crate in the center of the room, looking like a queen on a throne, surrounded by 3 armed men. And standing next to her, looking bored, was Richard Sterling, Liam's father. He was a handsome man, in a terrifying way. Silver hair, tailored suit, eyes that looked like they had been cut from glass. Well, Richard said, his voice echoing off the corrugated metal walls. The happy couple returns. And look, you brought the old bat. Hello, father, Liam said, stepping in front of me. You're looking old. Corruption ages a man, and you look like a disappointment, Richard sneered. Living in the gutter suits you. It's where you belong. Victoria stood up, holding out her hand. The card, Maya. Now, tell me something first, I said, holding the tiny chip up so it caught the light. Did you watch? When they killed him? Did you watch my father die? Victoria sighed, rolling her eyes. Always so sentimental. Yes, I watched. I held his hand, actually. I told him it was going to be okay. He needed to be calm so the drug would work faster. It was a mercy, really, mercy. I stepped forward, rage boiling in my blood. You stole everything he built. You forced me to live in poverty in my own house. I did what I had to do to maintain my lifestyle. Victoria snapped, her mask slipping. Do you have any idea how expensive it is to be a Leckler? Your father was going to throw it all away on some moral crusade. I saved the estate. You saved yourself, Liam cut in. And you sold your soul to do it. Enough of this soap opera, Richard barked. Kill the boy. Take the card. Throw the women in the river. The guards raised their weapons. Now. Liam screamed. Suddenly, the skylights of the warehouse shattered. Stun grenades dropped from the ceiling, exploding in blinding flashes of light and deafening bangs. The side doors burst open, and FBI agents in tactical gear swarmed in like a colony of angry ants. Federal agents, drop your weapons. It was chaos. The guards scrambled, blinded. Richard Sterling tried to run for the back exit, but Liam was faster. He tackled his father, slamming him into a stack of shipping pallets. For a second, I saw Richard reach for a gun inside his jacket, but Liam twisted his arm, pinning him to the ground. It's over, Dad, Liam shouted over the noise. The gilded circle is broken. But Victoria didn't run. She stood there amidst the smoke and the shouting, staring at me. She looked at the agents, then back at me, and her face twisted into a snarl of pure hatred. She pulled a small pistol from her purse. She wasn't aiming at the agents. She was aiming at me. If I go down, she screamed, "You're coming with me." Click, the gun jammed. I didn't flinch. I just walked up to her, grabbed the gun from her shaking hand, and slapped her across the face. It was a solid, satisfying slap that echoed through the warehouse. "That," I said, leaning in close as she stumbled back, "was for the wedding." The agents swarmed her, handcuffing her wrists behind her back. As they dragged her away, kicking and screaming about her rights and her lawyers, Aunt Camille walked up, blowing smoke off the barrel of her own gun, which she hadn't even needed to use. "Nice slap, kid," she said. "Your daddy would have been proud." The aftermath was a media circus. The arrest of Richard Sterling and Victoria Leckler dominated the news for weeks. The Gilded Circle crumbled. Dozens of city officials were indicted. The video of my father was played in court, and watching the jury's faces, I knew Victoria was never going to see the outside of a prison cell again. But the real shocker came 7 days later. It was a Saturday morning, exactly 1 week since the wedding. I was packing up my things at the manor. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts. When a sleek black town car pulled up, Liam got out. He was clean-shaven, wearing a suit that fit him perfectly, looking every inch the son of a billionaire, but with none of the cruelty. "Get in," he said, opening the door. "Where are we going?" I asked. "To finish the ceremony." He drove us to the private airfield on the outskirts of the city. Sitting on the tarmac was a Gulfstream G650 jet, gleaming white in the sun. It was massive. "My mother left me a trust fund," Liam explained as we walked toward the jet. "She hated my father. She had money away for years, clean money, inheritance from her side of the family. She told me I could only access it when I was ready to build something new. It's worth about $50 million. I stopped, staring at him. "You're rich." "Technically, we are rich," he corrected, taking my hand. "We're still married, remember?" I laughed, a sound that felt strange after so much crying. "So, the beggar is a prince, and the princess is a warrior." He smiled. "But look over there." He pointed to the chain-link fence at the edge of the tarmac. A prison transport van had stopped. 2 marshals were leading Victoria toward a transfer plane, Conair. Basically, she looked haggard, her hair messy, wearing an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with her complexion. She looked up. She saw the jet. She saw Liam. And she saw me. I didn't wave. I didn't gloat. I just raised my left hand and tapped my wrist, right where my father's watch used to sit. "Time's up, Victoria." She screamed something that was lost in the roar of the jet engines, and the marshals shoved her into the transport plane. We boarded the Gulfstream. The interior was cream leather and gold trim, smelling of fresh flowers. As the plane taxied down the runway, picking up speed, I felt the heaviness of the last 18 months finally lift off my chest. Liam poured 2 glasses of champagne. "Where to?" he asked. "Paris, Tokyo, somewhere nobody knows the name Leckler or Sterling." "Anywhere," I said, clinking my glass against his. "As long as it's far away from here." We took off, climbing high above the bayou, leaving the corruption and the pain and the church pews full of laughing hypocrites far below us. So, here's the thing about karma. People think it's some mystical force that strikes you down with lightning, but it's not. Karma is simply the truth waiting for its moment. Victoria thought she could bury the truth under money and arrogance. She thought she could force me into the mud and leave me there. But she forgot one thing: mud washes off. But the stain on your soul, that lasts forever. I look at Liam now, sleeping in the seat next to me as we cross the Atlantic, and I think about judgment. Everyone judged him by his clothes. Everyone judged me by my silence. But in the end,